Welcome back. So tuned in to News and Views on myself, Salailo Makudire. And we're going to be switching gears now to a very, very interesting conversation. Once again, looking at US President Donald Trump. He says recent talks with Iran have friendly, raising cautious hopes of hopefully a diplomatic breakthrough following the weeks of heightened regional tensions, looking at the war between the US, Israel, and Iran. And at the same time, just a few hours ago, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in Washington for high-level talks that are expected to focus on Iran's nuclear program. I think they'll be talking about regional security also and the future of Gaza. And the meetings come at a very, very pivotal point, a pivotal moment where we have more questions than answers over whether there's still space for diplomacy between the US and Iran, and whether or not competing security interests will once again push the region closer to more aggressive confrontation. But to help us unpack some of those questions and to look at the significance of these developments, we're joined by a very, very good friend of the show, international human rights and humanitarian lawyer, Professor Saul Takahashi. Prof, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks very much. It's great to see you again.
Pleasure's all ours. I want to kickstart the conversation looking at President Donald Trump. He has described the latest engagements with Iran as being friendly. What do we actually know about some of these talks, and should they be viewed as a genuine diplomatic breakthrough, or simply cautious confidence building, or just same old when it comes to Donald Trump?
Well, it's always very difficult to tell what exactly Donald Trump is thinking, and that's partially because he himself, I think, doesn't have any idea what he's thinking. I think he changes his mind after pretty much every couple of minutes, is very easily influenced by whatever evil person is around him. And so, it's very difficult to tell what exactly direction we're going. I mean, what's very clear is that Trump still wants to make a deal. He wants to have this war over and done with. And so do the Iranians. I mean, the Iranians also definitely want this over and done with. So, I do think there's still hope. I mean, I do think there's still a very good chance that we might come out of this, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a couple of days, but at some point we will come out with some sort of deal which is reasonably acceptable to both sides, at least to Trump. And his toadies and to the Iranians. We really have to see. I do want to say, though, it's always very important to recall certain important truths. So, Netanyahu is visiting Washington right now. Netanyahu is an indicted war criminal. He's a fugitive from international justice. If there is any real justice in the world, he would be behind bars right now. Trump is also obviously not indicted by the International Criminal Court, but he is certainly guilty of the international crime of aggression. This war of the United States and Iran, the United States and Israel on Iran is completely and totally without any kind of legal justification whatsoever. Naval blockades are acts of war. So again, this is a completely illegal thing that's going on. It's completely unlawful. And I do think we have to, always keep that in mind and understand that these are not, this isn't something legitimate that's going on here. Far from it. I mean, this is naked aggression and imperialism that Trump is engaging in on the behest of Netanyahu. And of course, Netanyahu in Washington, he is going to be doing his best to try to cajole Trump into continuing the war, escalating things, and and just continuing on with this aggression. An Israeli minister said quite recently, I think it was Smotrich, he said the quiet part out loud, which was that Israel is not going to take part into this war unless it really has to. Israel's not going to take part in this war because it's better for us meaning Israel, better for Israel that, the Americans fight it for us. They want to fight this war until the last American. This is what it is. And, I think this is very clear. It's clear to all. And it's clear to people in the MAGA movement in the United States that had been supporting Trump because they thought he was well, what they call an America firster. Turns out he's just as much as an Israel firster. So far, at least he has been, as many of the other guys. And so this is, all of this is coming together now, and it's difficult to know where we're going to go. But certainly, Trump sees that he's lost. He sees no way out and way forward. So that's why he is desperate for a deal. But again, Netanyahu and the Israelis in general are going to try to sabotage that as much as they can. We're going to have to see.
I want to touch on Benjamin Netanyahu's arrival in Washington, because it's very, very important. It's happening at a very critical and significant moment, where it looks and sounds like, as you're saying, Donald Trump being desperate to make a deal. But we all know what usually happens after Benjamin Netanyahu leaves Washington. It is followed by more aggression. But I think over the last couple of months, there seems to have been frustration from Donald Trump over Benjamin Netanyahu, particularly with Lebanon. How do you see that relationship right now? And do you think Benjamin Netanyahu still wields that much influence onto Donald Trump and ultimately the rest of the American top brass when it comes to issues of the Middle East and how they act in that part of the world?
Well, first of all, there's absolutely no question that Netanyahu and the Israeli government and basically the Israeli political elite hold huge influence. I use that word sort of judiciously because, I mean, you could even call it control, but I think that will be a little bit simplistic. But they hold huge influence over the American political elite. Within the beltway of Washington, D.C., which is where all the elite are, the government agencies and most of the government agencies and the lobbyists and the think tanks and all these kind of people, really this has become almost a vassal state of Israel. And that hasn't changed in any kind of discernible way whatsoever. If anything, it's got even worse. Now, Trump himself, though he doesn't show this, or he's been trying not to show this as much as he can, I honestly believe he is actually furious with Netanyahu. He is a lot of things, but he can, he's no dummy, and he can tell that Netanyahu and his cronies tricked him into this war. They were the ones who convinced him that this was going to be a walk in the park, that this was going to be really easy, and he was going to be a great hero, and he was going to make a huge amount of money for American corporations and probably for his family and for himself. But turns out that they were wrong. So I honestly believe that he is actually very furious. He probably thinks that first he's got to take care of the Iranians. First, he's got to get this done. Because, Trump is really the embodiment of, he's the embodiment of the ugly American, if you like. And his worst nightmare is being a loser. His worst nightmare is being seen by people, being seen as a loser. And so that's why he doesn't want this. He wants to get this done. He wants to have some kind of deal that he believes that he can pitch to the American people as a win, which that's not going to be possible. But the point is, that's what he wants. Any kind of deal, he's going to try to pitch to the American people as a win. And I believe that after that, he might start turning on Netanyahu. Netanyahu, I would say, he's a survivor. Say what you want about him and any other, obviously. Anyway, he's a survivor, and he is. I think he probably senses that, and that's why he's trying to steer things in Washington and with Trump, so that he's back on Trump's good side. Probably he's the situation with Trump right now, the situation of the Americans, is that nothing they've done against Iran has really worked. And that's because they went in without any kind of discernible strategy. They went in with any kind of, without any kind of serious idea of how they were going to prosecute this war. And then, obviously things didn't turn out as planned. And now they don't know what to do. And it goes back, there's a ceasefire, and Trump says, no, we're going to attack again and attack again. And the only card that Trump seems to have is, just bomb more places and see what happens. So Netanyahu is probably going in with something that he can sell Trump on as some kind of, decent plan. to actually bring down the Iranian government, or at least steer it closer to what they can plausibly call a win. And probably he's trying to convince Trump of the veracity of that plan right now. But, look, what the Israelis want is this war to continue. They want, if they can, I mean, I think they've honestly given up, bringing down the Iranian government. But what they will, if that's not possible, they want the war to continue. They want ongoing chaos and an ongoing weakening of Iran. That's what they want. And so,
Prof,
that's what the deal is going to be.
I want to stop you there. I want to stop you there because we have to go for a quick break. But when we come back, I want to look at that balancing act that, the U.S. could be playing, those two competing objectives, reassuring their closest ally in the Middle East and also pursuing diplomacy with Iran, and how that balancing act could play out, and if it's plausible. But we'll touch on those after the short break.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031-208-9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Africa. Give the gift of clean water with Africa Muslims Agency. With every water well or borehole you donate, your drop becomes a river, reconnecting communities to nourishment, education, dignity and empowerment. Sponsor a water well for 17,000 Rand in Africa, or a borehole for 65,000 Rand in Afghanistan or Africa. Quench the thirst. Reconnect the soul with Africa Muslims Agency.
Right now, in lands many of us feel deeply connected to, a mother holds a sick child, worried and fearful, as she knows her nearest hospital has been destroyed. This is the mother we go beyond borders to reach. Doctors Without Borders is there in the world's toughest places. We go where others can't or won't, and we go immediately. When you give to us, we go even further. Visit msf.org.za/sadaqa, that's SADAQAH, and support Doctors Without Borders today. Doctors Without Borders, we go there.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makudire. And I'm still in conversation with Professor Takahashi. And we're looking at those high-level conversations that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are having at this current moment in Washington. This is after Trump hailed talks with Iran as being quite positive. So we're going to be looking at, I think, this balancing act, Prof, before we went on to that short break, this balancing act that the United States of America finds itself into. There are two competing objectives here. Number one, being reassuring its closest regional ally in the Middle East, being Israel. And the second one, pursuing diplomacy. You mentioned that Donald Trump is currently desperate for a deal, but it is one with its, shall we say, principal adversary being Iran. How do you see this becoming a possibility? How do you see Donald Trump and Washington at large achieving these two objectives?
Well, look, first of all, I don't think Trump really cares about reassuring Netanyahu or the Israelis or anything. Trump cares about himself, and Trump doesn't want to be seen as a loser. That's all he's thinking. So I would gather that his thought process right now is, I'm going to do a deal with the Iranians. I'm going to shove a deal down their throat that I can sell to the American people and to the world as a whole as a win. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to be harsh on Netanyahu. I'm going to be really tough on him. Probably in his mind, he has this timeline. He is aware or mindful that the Israelis have an election in October. And, Trump can really spoil it for Netanyahu. Potentially, he could really throw a spanner in the works for this. So, maybe that's what he's thinking. That's obviously not what the political elite in Washington, D.C. is thinking in general. They're more mindful and trying to sort of being on the good side of Israel. So that's one sort of tension there. But it's going to, the thing is, it's what's one of the factors here is that it's going to be extremely difficult for Trump to reach a deal with Iran that he can plausibly sell as a win to anybody. Trump is a professional con man. He thinks he is smarter than the rest of the world, like all con men do. And he thinks that he can take any kind of deal, where the Americans have completely lost everything, and he can somehow, convince the whole world that in fact the Americans were completely victorious. That's what he did with the first 14-point deal, you might remember. But there is no, the Iranians do not, obviously they don't trust the Americans to abide by this, by any kind of agreement. And if I were the Iranians, I wouldn't either. I mean, there's really, it would be really foolish of the Iranians to trust Trump or the Americans on anything, because he has broken pretty much every agreement that the Americans have had with them. So, they are continuing to push the envelope, because they don't believe, they don't trust the Americans, they don't trust Trump. One recent development is, of course, this thing that took place with Saudi Arabia, this nuclear deal. Now, Trump entered into this nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. That already is something that the Iranians, I'm sure, were very upset about. But then within 24 hours, Trump just turned around, and all of a sudden he started saying, well, in fact, actually, we're not going to do this deal with the Saudis unless they recognize Israel and they become part of the Abraham Accords. Now, it's not really clear what's going to happen with that right now. But, the Iranians are looking at this and they're saying, how can we trust this guy? I mean, if this is how he treats one of his closest allies, probably his closest ally after Israel in that region, arguably even closer than the Israelis. And how can we trust him like this? I mean, if this is how he treats Saudi Arabia, what's he going to do with our agreement? And this is just one of the many, So they're continuing to push the envelope. I do think, I do think they might be overplaying their hand sometimes. So that is, that's something that we're just going to have to see. But it's going to be very difficult for Trump to reach an agreement with the Iranians that is not an almost complete American capitulation like the initial agreement was. So he's in a bind. He's in a difficult spot, and this is where Netanyahu, the evil puppet master, comes in. I mean, he comes in and he probably has some sort. He has some kind of plan that he's going to try to sell Trump and try to convince him. Oh, this, if only you do this, then you will beat the Iranians in no time, and then everything will just be fine and good, and you'll be seen as the winner and the Roman emperor that you are. That's probably what's going on. And I don't know if Trump is going to fall for it again. He fell for it the first time. So is he going to be tricked again? Could be. I mean, I don't know. If he likes what Netanyahu tells him, he might do this, and then we're going to have this is just going to go on, and that's obviously it's a concern. It's a concern for civilians in Iran. It's a concern for the Gulf states, and it's a concern for the entire global economy.
Lastly, before I let you go, Prof, there's a conversation that is no longer dominating the headlines. The conversation on Gaza, it remains quite central, to the region top agendas, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be discussed when Netanyahu sits down with Donald Trump. From your perspective, what do you think is going to be discussed there? To what extent Gaza will be dominating the conversations, and what exactly would they be discussing regarding Palestine and the people of Gaza?
Oh, well, Trump has an attention span of about 30 seconds. I don't think they're going to talk about Gaza. I don't think Netanyahu is interested at all in raising issues about Gaza, because why would he be? I mean, look, in a day which shall live in infamy, the history of the United Nations, the UN gave this Trump-made Ponzi scheme. I'm not the first person to say that. I'm actually quoting somebody else, but this fake organization, the so-called Board of Peace, they gave them the mandate. The UN gave them the mandate to govern Gaza for 2 years. Trump tried to strong arm his buddies in various countries to pay, I think it was $1 billion for an all-in as a member of the Board of Peace. I don't think any money has come in it whatsoever, and so nothing's happening. Israel is preventing this, Trump's peace plan from going forward. I mean, it's Israel. That's it. Israel kills innocent civilians pretty much every single day. They have killed at least 1,200 people ever since the ceasefire in October 2025. It's they've never ceased fire. The Israelis have, just like pretty much every single ceasefire that they've ever entered into about Palestine and also with Lebanon, they've never ceased fire. And they continue to kill and massacre. This is what they do. They continue to illegally, de facto annex land. They are slowly but surely increasing the land that they're occupying in Gaza, and shrinking the space available to the displaced people in Gaza who are living in tent cities that are bombed and burned by the Israelis. The Israelis are preventing this technical committee that is supposed to govern Gaza upon the instructions of the Board of Peace. This is a technical committee that is made up of apolitical Gazans, apolitical Palestinians, apolitical Palestinian technocrats who have no political affiliation. But they can't enter Gaza because the Israelis are preventing them. So it's the Israelis that are preventing any of this bogus Trump peace plan from taking any kind of progress. If I were Netanyahu, I would hope Trump has completely forgotten about Gaza. Frankly, I think he has. So I don't think there's any problem there. So he's not going to talk about it. He might, Lebanon might be raised. I certainly hope that Trump will raise Lebanon, because that's very much at the in the background in terms of Iran's lack of trust with the Americans. This is in the 14-point agreement. It is point 1 of the 14-point agreement that Israel has to stop attacking Lebanon, and the Americans have to ensure this. And the Americans have done jack squat in that regard. They've imposed agreements on the Lebanese government, which are really against the spirit, if not the letter, of these agreements. And that's all they've done. So they haven't reined in the Israelis in any way, shape, or form. So how could the Iranians possibly trust them? So presumably, Netanyahu will probably touch on Lebanon and try to convince Trump that there are security issues and that's the reason, and it's all Hezbollah's fault. And I think that'll be a very easy sell with Trump, because Trump remains completely ignorant of anything and everything that goes on, not only in the region, but pretty much beyond his own mirror. So that will be a very easy sell. But I don't think they're going to talk about Gaza. I think he might congratulate Trump, or they might pat each other on the back about their successful campaign to bring down Chief Prosecutor Khan. And they might say, oh, that was a great thing we did. It shows what we can do when we cooperate and strong arm other countries to do our bidding and do our will. This is what we've got to do. And the next step, Trump, you great leader, is for you to continue on with this campaign against the International Criminal Court and bring it down, dismantle it brick by brick, like Rubio said that they were going to do. This is a really dark day or dark time for international justice and for international law in general. So, that they might be talking about that. But Gaza is something that Netanyahu has no interest in raising.
Going to leave on that said note, Professor Saul Takahashi, always a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Salam.
Welcome, Salam. That's Professor Saul Takahashi, international human rights and humanitarian lawyer, helping us unpack the renewed diplomatic engagement between the United States and Iran, and also highlighting that high-stakes meeting between President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We've come to the end of today's edition of News and Views, but we're going to be wrapping up with our hashtag Fire feature, probably brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. Otherwise, from me, Salilo, and the rest of the team, it's bye for now. Ship.